DeepCool has given us a true airflow Micro-ATX case in the sea of aging cases in this space. Did they succeed in bringing this form factor to the modern age? We find out right now on Robeytech. Today we are looking at the new Matrexx 40 3FS from DeepCool. And as much as you love our reviews, it's good to get other perspectives before you buy. But Robey! There are so many best monitors of 2021, but Robey! There are so many best cases of 2021 videos and lists on the internet. How do I know who I can trust? The pain! Well, I'm glad you asked, because today's sponsor is Lustre. Lustre is a free product research assistant that helps you make informed purchase decisions. And you're not sure what you should get. Well, that's where Lustre comes in. It will immediately tell you which ones are the best for your budget. You can actually see why they chose the products that they did by checking the reviews from trusted sources like Wirecutter, PCMag, Reddit discussions, even YouTubers. Wait, I'm not on there! Lustre. Anyway, and then present clear, easy-to-use formats. Search by product you need and your budget to get a breakdown of how each one stacks up against its competition with reviews you can trust. Lustre also lets you know if a product is on sale and compares prices from retailers like Walmart, Best Buy, Amazon, and more, so you know that you are getting the best deal. Now, if you want to save time, money, and get the best product for your budget every time, install Lustre using the link down in the description below. It's completely free to use. Now, when I think about great Micro-ATX airflow cases, the options feel limited. And I may miss some, but even if you were to Bing, yes, I Bing, it gives free rewards, and honestly, it does a really good job. Or Google best Micro-ATX cases, you would see a list of aging cases and an opportunity for innovation. In fact, one of the best cases and most premium at this point would be the Cooler Master MB311, which replaced the aging Masterbox Q300L. But the MB311 doesn't make any of the lists, while the Q300L does. Go figure. Anyway, that takes us to the DeepCool Matrexx 40 3FS, which is getting dangerously close to how companies seem to name their monitors. Matrexx 40 3FS. Now, DeepCool calls the Matrexx 40 a case packed with a massive value in a tiny chassis with impressive cooling support in max airflow with 3 tricolor LED fans and a solid tempered glass window. Now, by the end of this video, because we're going to test all of that, you're going to 1. Know all of the features and an overview of the DeepCool Matrexx 40 3FS. You're going to 2. See a full build and get an understanding of what building inside of the DeepCool Matrexx 40 3FS feels like. And 3. See the benchmarks and thermal performance of our build inside of the Matrexx 40. And then 4. You're going to screw with confidence. Coming in at $54.99, which is $20 less than the MB311, the Matrexx 40 3FS is actually the successor to the older Matrexx 30. With upgrades on airflow and cooling capacity, the plan was to make something that not only performed better at a good value, but looked premium. Hence the front panel design you are seeing here on the case. The other key bit worth mentioning as well is the overall height of the case was also increased to help allow larger radiator configurations. Speaking of radiator configurations, you have a number of options on this case for your fans. You can do up to 6 120mm fans or 4 140mm fans with available mixtures of the two to create an optimal airflow cooling scenario for your build. For radiator support, you can fit up to a 280mm on the top or on the front with a 120mm radiator option in the rear if you're feeling up to it. For your front I/O, you get 1 USB 3, 1 USB 2, 1 mic and audio, plus a power and reset button. No USB-C, which, hey, given a price point, isn't surprising and isn't available on all Micro-ATX motherboards, but something worth noting here. Now let's cover clearances real quick. For your GPU option, you're looking at 320mm, which you'll see from our build means that you can do an RG Strix or higher as in a GPU option. As an added bonus, this case does come with a slot for a GPU sag bracket, but it does not come with the case, just the ability to mount one. Now for the CPU cooler, you're looking at 165mm tall, which gives you plenty of room for those tall tower air coolers should you want it. I mean, heck, we got a DeepCool AS500 in there, and that's a very tall air cooler. Now finally, for PSU, they were recommending 160mm, which means you aren't sticking like a 1200 watt behemoth PSU in here. It is worth noting that there is a non-movable drive tray down in the PSU shroud. So considering this when choosing your PSU, you may want to choose something smaller like a Seasonic or something like that that would benefit if you were installing a 3.5-inch physical drive. Non-movable drive trays can be a real pain in the patooey when you get to that building, especially when you're trying to cram all those big PSU cables down at the bottom. Now for storage options, outside of M.2s on your motherboard, of course, you can do two 2.5-inch SSDs. Pro tip, if you're going to install your 2.5-inch SSDs, do them first before doing anything else, as the mounts are from the inside, meaning you won't be able to screw them on once you've installed your MoBo or fans or components. So again, do them first. I know it's weird, you're like, hey, I'm mounting my SSDs before I do anything. Trust me, it'll save you in the end run. Now, you also have the option of two 3.5-inch HDDs, but no, you're really limiting space on your PSU area if you go with two drives down there. They are stackable, and again, you will be completely trapped with no place to basically do your cable management for your power supply. Anyway, guys, let's jump into the full build, and then we'll come back and talk about performance. So let's talk about the parts we're putting inside of this Micro-ATX enclosure. We're doing the Ryzen 5 5600X. We're gonna be sticking this in the B550 Aorus Pro P. For storage, we're gonna be using the Vulcan G. This is from Team T-Force. It's a 1 terabyte SSD. We've got a Western Digital Blue 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. For RAM, we're gonna be using G.Skill Triton Z Neo. This is 3600 at 16. For our cooler, this is the DeepCool AS500 Plus. For our power, we're using the DQ750. For our GPU, we're throwing in the GeForce Asus ROG Strix 3060 Ti. Just for some fun, we've got our beautiful Asia Horse cables. So that's the entire build that we're going to be building on tonight's show. Okay, so here we go. This is our B550 Aorus Pro P. Okay, let's grab our CPU and go from there. We're going to take this to 90 degrees, drop this in like so, and then all you got to do is just going to put that back down like that. And there you go. Your CPU is officially installed. Pretty straightforward, pretty light job right there. You're going to put in your RAM. There's a little slot here on the PCB. Just gonna pop it in just like that, and just gonna give it a push on both sides. Oh! Did you hear that? What is that? That was a good clip. Oh. Okay, here we go. We're gonna pop this out and get our M.2 installed here. And like, I will tell you, here's the deal. I will tell you, doing duck butt while you screw helps you screw with confidence when you screw. So like getting your butt out when you screw, like it helps a ton. See how much easier? Duck butt, that's the secret. You guys wanna know the top hidden secret? I'm telling you, you watch Jay, you watch Linus, when they're off camera and they're just putting in screws, they're duck butting all the time. Okay, so there we go. We got everything in now. Let's go ahead and get our cooler installed. So now we've got this all squared away. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our giant, it's already kind of connected and ready to go. It's already cable managed actually a little bit too, so if you're curious as to what's going on here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this connection and I'm gonna connect this right here in the top right-hand corner. That's our CPU. Okay, so everything is installed. We're basically good to go. And now let's get our case prepped. There we go. Okay, cool. So we're gonna have a slight overpressure situation inside of today's case. 2 intake, single exhaust. Let's throw our fans in really quick. So we're gonna grab our MF120 GTs and get these installed. Okay, so there is our fans. We're gonna just do the 2 in the front. You need to install the SSD, especially in this one, before you either put in your fans or before you put in your motherboard, because the motherboard will actually block the ability to do the screws. So we're gonna install those real quick right now. Okay, so now that's installed. Now what we can do is we can grab our motherboard. Okay, so now what we're gonna do now is install our last fan here. And for fan placement, I'm gonna put this a little lower so it catches as much direct air from the cooler as possible. Everything's pulled through. We got everything on the other side. Let's go ahead, and what we're gonna do real quick is we're gonna go ahead and hook up our front panels. So get all the front panel stuff kind of plugged in. Okay, so what I plugged in is over here on the left. I've got my front panel connection. We've got our power switch, hard drive switch, and reset switch. Right here, this abysmal huge connection is our USB 3.2. This right here is USB 2. This right here is our fan hub connection. This is our RGB hub connection. This allows the RGB to be controlled by the motherboard. And then all the way over there on the far left is our HD audio. Let's go ahead and get all of our RGB plugged in and get it cable managed, and then we'll turn it over, put in our GPU and all that stuff. So we're actually in pretty good shape. Okay, so there we go. Everything's ready to go. It looks nice and simple and channeled and good to go. So let's go ahead and grab our GPU, kind of fill the case out. Okay, that is in. Here on the front, you see this little clip here. This little clip, you can't put the card in and then put this back on. So you just kind of lift it up and you can see there's a little space. And so what I'm doing is I'm having to put my screwdriver through and then put my screw on it. And then you can screw it down, see? Let's grab our cables. There we go. So let's turn this over and finish hooking up everything. PSU time. Okay, let's get the case back together. Let's turn the power on. Oh, that's a reset. There we go. And it is on. So you just witnessed a full build inside of the DeepCool Matrexx 40. But now it's time to get in the fun and the nitty gritty. How is the case thermally? It still sounds dirty when I say it, but how is this case thermally? How do these particular components for this build perform, and how are they in the benchmarks? Now, if you want to see how it is that we do all of these reviews and our testing in depth, check out our full video here. It basically talks you through our step-to-step on how we test cases. But let's talk about our case thermals. 3 intake and a single exhaust with a positive pressure situation in the case using DeepCool MF120 GT fans. So for our CPU thermals, we're seeing this case sitting in idle with the 5600X sitting at a nice and frosty low 30s in both our open and closed case scenario. Now when you crank up the power, literally by making the CPU do its job by processing billions of cat pictures, I'm just kidding, we really didn't process billions of cat pictures. But the point is, we see those numbers jump in the low 70s in our open air case and up to the high 70s in our closed case scenario. A 6-degree delta in our open versus closed was noticeable enough that we wanted to see if there was an issue with the potential airflow out of our DeepCool AS500 Plus. So we did an extra test by adding an additional exhaust fan at the top to see if we might get better temps. However, when running the test, we actually saw the exact same temperatures, making us think this is actually be a CPU cooler issue and not an airflow issue. That's not to say the CPU temps are bad, but the limiting factor here may be the cooler fans on the AS500 Plus and not the case airflow itself. These are good temperatures, but we just wanted to see if modifying the case airflow would make it a little bit better. Now let's talk about GPU, because it's a really positive story given that we used an Asus RG Strix 3060 Ti. It is so chunky. This GPU under idle in open case is sitting at a cool 35, while only jumping by 4 degrees to a 39 in closed case scenario. Now when we start rendering all those memes through, okay, fine, we weren't rendering memes, but you'll see the numbers jump to 74 in the open case scenario and getting as high as 77 in the closed case scenario. Now, given how close that 3060 Ti behemoth is to the bottom of the case, these temps are good. And you may actually see slightly better thermals on slimmer cards because they may get more airflow from those two bottom MF120 GT fans. So what does this all mean? It means that DeepCool did what they aimed to do. They built a value airflow case that does indeed get good airflow and has the thermal performance to prove it. There is still a larger delta here in regards to other cases from other manufacturers when we talk about open case airflow, but a few degrees is nothing to be ashamed of and shows that air really is getting through the case and to the components. Of course, planning your build and choosing the right airflow fans is going to be key here. But if you do out of the box, as the case comes, you're going to actually be pretty good shape even with those really weird stock airflow fans. Now, for the benchmarks, because you want to know if you were to build this exact same system in this PC, in this case, or another case, you basically want to know how this particular build is going to run. So let's talk about our single player RTX experiences, given this is an NVIDIA GPU paired with a Ryzen 5 5600X using an ROG Strix 3060 Ti, or for the most part, any RTX 3060 Ti. Now for Tomb Raider running at 1440p with DLSS on high presets, we saw an average frame rate of 109 FPS across the runs that we did in our game. For Metro Exodus, also running at 1440p, running ray tracing on high and DLSS set at balance, we saw an average FPS across running at 68. But what about the MP games? Because that's what everybody plays. Well, let's talk about Apex Legends. Running on low visual settings at 1440p, optimizing for competitive gameplay and high FPS, we saw an average frame rate of 143 FPS across our multiple game sessions. For Call of Duty, again, setting things for competitive gameplay and maximizing for frame rate, we saw an average frame rate of 79 FPS. Now finally, for all you Fortnite fans, basically going out there with all your skins and looking all awesome, we also tested 1440p on low visual settings, set to competitive play, so that way you are basically owning fools, sitting at a whopping 413 FPS. Now remember, if you drop down to 1080p, these numbers will go up, and if you jump up to 4K, these numbers will go down. But these numbers are actually pretty dang good given the combination of CPU and GPU. You have the features and you've seen a build. You've also seen the thermals and the benchmarks, but what about the building experience? Robey, tell me about the building experience. Was it like building a home? You bet it was. Well, actually, to be frank, it was fine. The case really is set for value, and that comes across at times when building in this PC. Stuff like you need to detach the I/O covers before you install the motherboard to make sure you can get your GPU in. That can be a big inconvenience if you haven't built before. In fact, in two cases, one being the I/O shield, and the other one being if you're going to install SSDs. You may find yourself having to remove the motherboard and taking your build apart because you need to install something in an order that isn't typical of most builders and doesn't follow the step-by-step guides that most people do on YouTube. There are also little things like no rubber grommets and non-movable hard drive trays that kind of show this is a value case. And it could make building in the case just a little bit better if these things were improved. It's also worth noting that the cable management room is really shallow, and if you're planning on cramming a ton of RGB or big thick cable extension in the case, you may find yourself sitting on it to get the case closed, and we know that always doesn't work out well. However, the outside of the case does look great. If you are a fan of the front panel and how it looks with the RGB fans behind it, it looks clean, and I like the aesthetics personally. It also has good thermals, so once you're done, you have something that not only looks good, but performs well, and there is no arguing with that. So let's bring it home. The DeepCool Matrexx 43FS is a value Micro-ATX case that does perform, but in keeping the cost down, it makes a few sacrifices. They aren't killing the case at all, but it can dampen the building experience and the aesthetics if you don't properly plan for it. If you're looking for a good value case that performs well and on the outside looks as clean as well as it performs, then maybe the DeepCool Matrexx 43FS is right for you. Anyway guys, that is it. Is this a case review that was helpful? I'd love to know all of that down in the comments below. Now while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so we get a notification each and every time we go live or we post a new video right here on YouTube. Speaking of live, we have a live show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, both here on YouTube and also on Twitch, where you can watch us do live builds and hang out with cool people like yourself. We have an amazing community over at discord.gg/Robeytech. We talk about PC builds, we have people who help, and all of that sort of great stuff. And then the other thing too is you can come and follow us along with the socials. We're on the TikTok doing the dances, we're on the Instagram showing the pretty pics, we're on the Twitter making weird, crazy memes. It's got all of the things that you want. So follow us on all of that stuff over at Robeytech. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video and I'm super excited to see you on the next one.